Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of thecreditrepairshop.com. And in today's video, we're going to talk about what you need to look at on your reports so you can attain that level of having good credit. And if you already have good credit, I'm going to tell you what you need to continually pay attention to on a month-to-month basis to protect your credit score. So I'm going to go through those step by step so we can make sure that we understand what needs to be done. And I want you to just get this deep inside of you, because if you've repaired your credit already, I don't want you to go back to needing to have credit repair. I want you to build up business-wise or build up your career and what you're doing. If you have bad credit right now, I'm going to show you in detail some of the things that you need that you need to look at, number one, so you can know what you need to work on to get started. A lot of times people know that they have bad credit, but they're like all scattered. They don't have no plan of action. They're just going after to try to delete information, when you have to look at your whole credit report as a whole, not just parts of it. If you've seen some of my videos where I've gotten part of my library up right now in my office here, and I like to refer back to either books that I've purchased or even programs that I've purchased from other people, just to kind of read it over again. That's why I like making my videos on the same subject over again, because depending on where your level of awareness is, you will see even more. You will notice even more about what you're reading, or more about what I'm showing on the video. And like with this book here, there was some information in here that I did not the first time that I read it, in which I admit it's been like more than 20 years this year, 20 to 25 years. It might even be longer than that. This was wrote in 1989, and it was by Dave Delgado. It was Keys, you see it, Keys to Your Credit, The Key to Your Financial Resource by Dave Delgado. If you don't know who that is, he was back when I was younger in the 80s, there was the real estate seminars all over the place. And he was one of the ones that was on late night TV telling people how to get rich quick with real estate. And he's in the wine business now. So he was truly making money in real estate, even though they make it sound a lot easier than it is. But I was flipping through this. Sometimes when I come in, I'll just grab one of the books off my shelf and I'll just look through it and flip through it, and I'll try to find some sections that might interest me, and I'll read it again. And one of the things that he had in here that I believe is some very good information was that, well, number one, I want to talk about something that he talked about here first, is you've heard a lot of people getting credit cards and are utilizing, turning the credit cards into cash to either jumpstart their business, or to finance their business, or to even buy real estate. For me, the concept was I'll admit I see why people think that this doing that with the cards and all of that can work. Because if you have a business and you have an idea that will work, that you just need to add more funds to it, I could see, that would be a way to finance the business until you were able to either self-finance it, or you're able to get another way to finance it without the high interest rate. Well, he had talked about in here, this is back in 1989, which he was probably doing this even before that, is he was talking about liquidating credit cards. And I would say that one of the more common things that I run into with business clients that come to us, and some regular clients who have attempted to start a business, is that they've done the liquidating of credit cards to try to do a business, or they've done the liquidating of credit cards to buy into a course or some type of program, and they were not able to turn that into cash, and then they were not able to keep up with the debt service on the credit cards, and then they ended up with messing up their credit, and then they ended up coming to us to try to help them get out of that situation. And some of those are so entangled, it's unbelievable. But he actually talked about that in here. But the thing that I read that what I thought was like very interesting was he had a section on here about your cost, your cost of living. And it's when I think that when some people think about the cost of living, is we think about rent, mortgage, utilities, fuel back and forth in our vehicles to get to work or to whatever we do, all of the stuff, the household necessities. Well, one thing that he did do in this small book is that he actually went a step further, which I think will help people truly understand what the cost of living is. Because this is how a lot of people lead their life. Is like they will go, let's just say you go shopping, spend some money on credit cards. And I'll even say that I've done this in the past before. And it's like, oh, I'll pay it when I get paid. I'll pay the minimum or whatever. Like, people are not truly thinking about the cost of living. And he broke this down. He was like, hey, if you even have a car, let's just break down the true cost of a car. The first cost is just to buy the car. And most people don't pay cash for a car. So then it goes into the price that it's going to cost you on a monthly basis to buy that car. And then the price that it's going to cost you to have insurance on that car on a monthly basis. Then the price is going to cost you to do the repairs on that car when they're needed. The maintenance on that car when you need it. The fuel for the car. Like all of that, you break all of that down to get a true cost of living. And why that caught my attention was that I was thinking, like, if we knew exactly how much something was costing us, I think that we would make better decisions on what we decided to buy and what we decided not to buy, what we would just hold off on, because we would know how that's going to affect our finances later down the road. It would just help us make better decisions. He went all the way down into the entertainment. He went down into how much our children costing us. Like, not just the extras that we get for our kids, like, buying stuff for them. And now people getting the phones and the pads and all of that stuff. But just to maintain a certain lifestyle for our children. And when I say lifestyle, I mean where they have a roof over their head, they're comfortable, they can eat, stuff like that. How much is that costing us on a daily basis, monthly basis? These are things that we got to pay attention to, because what it'll help us do is it'll help us make better financial decisions, which is what it all comes down to. When we're talking about credit, when we're talking about why are we in these situations, why am I getting paid and then it seems like I don't have enough money at the end of the month, it's because of the budgeting. When you learn and you understand how much money is actually coming in, like the net amount, which is usually very easy because you can just look at your paycheck, or if you have a business, you can look at the amount of money that is coming in, even though it might vary if you have a business, or if it might even vary if you work by the hour at your job. But you know roughly what is coming in. But the part that we usually don't truly know is the amount that's going out. I'll even admit, for me, the way that I do it is I just put everything into Quicken software. I download everything that I pay for, and then I just push a button and I look at all of the expenses. It'll even break it down. And I'll be like, well, we don't need this. We don't need certain things we should have, certain things it's like, maybe we shouldn't be spending so much money on those things. But I'll admit that was what I had to do when I was younger. Now it's just my wife and I, and we rarely do buy any big ticket type things, other than if it's something for the home or I mean, I don't even know what was the last. Well, I guess one of the last big ticket items I bought was the RV and my wife's Jeep. So I'll take that back. But we don't really, spend a lot of money like we did when we were younger. Like we used to spend a lot of money when we were younger. But I think that happens when you grow older and you get wiser and you understand that, you need to put money aside. You need to prepare for emergencies. And then also you start to understand that a lot of the stuff that we buy is we're buying the same thing over and over again. I had noticed that with like my dress shirts and stuff and my suits. One time I was looking in my closet and I was like, that I've bought the same type of suit like 5 times and the same type of shirt like 30 times. Like in my closet, I was like, I have 30 suits and I have like 40 or 50 shirts. And I'm like, I started donating stuff. Like that's what I started doing. I was like, first what I did is because this is one of the things that I always say is if you're going to get something, if it's clothes, you better wear it. Don't let it sit up in there and don't wear it. And if it's something that you buy, you better utilize it. If you don't do those two, you need to stop doing that. And then you need to donate that stuff because it's just sitting there and not doing anything. It could do something good for somebody else. So let's hop right into it. When you're looking to have good credit, the first thing you got to do is you got to get those credit reports. If you don't have your credit reports, you don't even have like the fuel. That's like going to buy a car and it's like, I refuse to put gas in the car. Well, having a complete 100% full, all three scores credit report is like putting the gas in your credit repair automobile, your credit repair vehicle. And it gives you a level of understanding about what is going on with your specific situation. Now, let's take a look here. And if you need to get your credit reports, you can go to my website. It's www.your3scores.com. Link is also below this video. But first, let's just talk about what we need to look for when getting the credit reports. And when you download your credit reports, first thing you need to pay attention to, I'm going to put my red marker here. You need to pay attention to your personal data. This is one of the things that I think that get a lot of people turned down when they have good credit. Like some people have said, Steve, I have good credit. I got a 750 score. And I was like, let me look at your credit reports. And looking at it, I'm like, well, here's one issue that I could see potentially that was a strike against you. And it would be people would have these aliases all over. Like I've seen one with a friend of mine that's from another country, an Arab friend of mine. He had like 15 aliases on his report. Can you believe that? 15, where they just screwed up his name. Some of them, it was Muhammad, and they got M-U, then M-O, M-A, like what? And then just totally screwed up his first name, and then they had his middle name in there. I was like, who are you? I was just playing with him, but I was like, who are you? So you got to clean those up. And the way that you do that is you have to send them a letter. You have to show them proof with your ID and a piece of mail where it was a bill addressed to you in your proper name. And you would need to tell the bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, that you want to get that corrected, that is inaccurate, that the way that they have those aliases are incorrect. And the way that those get on there is from people filling out applications, and people don't read them, or they make mistakes typing. A lot of the car dealers or the salespeople, when they're punching in stuff, you wouldn't believe how many people type like this. You wouldn't believe how many people type like that. That's going to make for a lot of mistakes. And sometimes they just don't pay full attention. Sometimes they don't even care. Like, just think if it's just inquiries, and we'll get to that later. But even with if it's just like an inquiry and they're just like, you know, you go to a place, they're just like trying to get you in the in-house financing or whatever, but they just want to show you that you're going to get denied, or they want to show you, hey, this is what we saw with your score, and you need to move over to this program. They can punch your name. I'm not saying that they do it, but they may not care too much about the way that they put your name in. They want to just get the whole process moving. Next thing is you need to pay attention to those addresses. You need to get those old addresses off of there. Let me tell you why that's a huge problem. Is because if you got any mail that is going to another address, that address is going to show up on your credit report. So it's going to look like you got all these different addresses. And if there's any problem, maybe that address is in a zip code that is considered red line. Now, I know that that's illegal for loan lenders and banks and you know, credit unions and all of them. They're not supposed to pay attention to it, but we see it all the time in the news where they're redlining certain areas. Not to say if you live in one that's going to be a problem, but you want to minimize that. You don't want to have multiple addresses in different, you know, in different locations. You need to get it pinned down to just one address, your current one. Just tell them you need to get that other address off of there. And again, you're going to need to send them a letter just in plain English. Let the bureaus know, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian know that they need to remove those other addresses. Give them a piece of mail that has your current address and your name, and that name needs to match how you want it to have it here, because then you're going to make more confusion. The way that you can get that corrected is log into your portal. If you're from wherever you're going to use that piece of mail from, get that corrected so it can match the way that you want it to match with your name on there. And then you need to have that ID. Make sure that your ID is matching, because you don't want to make a whole nother problem, because they can just kick everything back because your address and your name is not matching. So you got to just be careful about that. Next thing is your job. You want to look at your job, and I'm going to tell you why the job is important when it goes to being able to get your credit, to get some, to be able to get approved for credit. Is that they're going to look at how long you've been on your job, and they're going to look at is that your current job, and if you got all these different jobs on there. People don't believe it, but they do pay attention to that. Some people have, when you get that letter in the mail and they've denied you for credit, it will either say, sometimes it will say that not a long enough time employment, or it may say you got bad payment history, or it may say you don't have enough payment history, or you don't have enough type of trade lines to qualify for the type of loan that they're trying to give you. So that's why it's very important that you take care of that. These are some of the easiest things that you can take care of, that you have a lot of control of on your with your personal data, because you would be the one that would be providing that, because you are that person and you can provide that. You might have to go back and forth with them. I'm not here to say that it is always easy to get them to make those corrections right away, but this is something that you do have a lot of control over, because they don't have to send that out to a third party for verification. The next thing is the debt to income ratio. You only see your debt month to month. So if you get the credit monitoring service that I just referred you to, go to your3scores.com, your and the number 3 scores.com, and you will see that it'll have your month to month, how much debt you're carrying for month to month. It'll also let you know if your debt went up or if your debt went down. And your scores can also react by that debt going up and down. But this is something that you and the creditor can see. But this is something here that a lot of people are unaware of, is that creditors can see both. And you might be wondering, well, how can a creditor see my income? How can they see that? I didn't tell a creditor my income. Yes, you did tell a creditor your income. You've told your income on every application that you filled out. And any application that you filled out and the credit has been ran by one creditor, it can be seen by another creditor. A lot of people don't know that that can happen. They think like, well, how can they see that information? The way that they see it is not from that creditor. They see it by the way it was placed into the Bureau's database. So they may not know that Citibank, ran an inquiry to see if they should give you a credit card. But they're going to know that you did submit information, and they're going to know that there was an inquiry pulled, and they're going to be able to look at that data to kind of match it up to see if the same data is being placed in there by you with them. They will be able to make that match. Now, this is all done by computer algorithms, so it's not something that's done by a human that's doing it. So they can learn your income from applications, and mortgage companies especially use your tax records. They'll order a tax transcript. They'll make you sign to get permission, and they'll get your tax transcript. In the past, they used to didn't worry about that. They just went off of what you had stated as your income and what you proved with your paychecks, or if you're a business, what you prove with your taxes. But they actually now want to back that up with tax records when it comes to getting mortgages. Next thing that you need to pay attention to is your trade lines. Now, there's two types of trade lines that you can get. The primary trade lines are your loans, the ones that you got approved for, that you went out, you got your car, you got your credit card, you even had a student loan, or you got a personal loan or payday loan, whatever those that you actually applied for and you got approved for. Those are primary trade lines. And the other one is called an authorized user trade line. Now, an authorized user trade line could be if you maybe worked with one of your family members. They wanted to help you with your credit. They put you on there, or maybe you work for a business and they gave you a business credit card that you can utilize for supplies and stuff that you need for the business. That information in certain circumstances, certain situations, depending on the primary card holder, they can actually have that information of all of the payment history added on to your personal credit report, and that can help bump your scores up. A lot of people utilize that to help boost their scores up. Now, something that you need to be aware of, there's certain types of credit that an authorized user account won't work for, mainly for mortgages. And some of the times it just depends on who the lender is. But for everything else, if you add an authorized user on there to jump up your score, and you're trying to get a credit card, you're trying to get a car, you're trying to get approved for a personal loan, having that on there is a very good benefit. I've seen that work for individuals from time and time again, where they were able to get a better interest rate solely because they utilize having an authorized user account placed on their credit report, and then their scores were able to jump up, and they were able to utilize getting a better interest rate. So pay attention to those on the trade lines. Make sure that every trade line is yours. Let me tell you a funny story that happened to me. Years ago, I had noticed that an account, it was from Target, was placed on my credit reports, and I was like, I never had a Target credit card, never. And here's the funny thing, whoever had did it, it probably was an accident somehow, I don't know. But they made all of the payments. So it was like, they made all of the payments, and I notified them, hey, this is not my account. I don't want them to end up messing up. But they had made like 6 months of payments. Now, this was way back before I had started the credit repair shop. I was always paying attention to my credit when I would apply for credit and I would get it, but I didn't have credit monitoring, so I didn't even know. So it's very important to get access to your credit reports. And also, back then in the early 2000s, the credit monitoring was not around the way that it is around right now. So it was mainly where you would learn about things that's on your credit when you would get your yearly credit report, or you would apply for something and you would see something on there. So, but now I pay attention. I look at mine all the time. I pay for the service that I'm sending you to. I pay every month for it. I've done it for years. Next thing that you want to pay attention to is your payment history. You want to look at every line on your payment history, and it's very important to pay attention to your payment history, because if you messing up, having one 30-day late, if you just have one 30-day late, that hurts you. Even if you got everything else taken care of, that hurts you. And let me explain why. when it on your credit reports, it's going to have 24 months of payment history. And actually with the new FICO 10, it's going to have 36 months of payment history on there. So that means that if you mess up this month, it's going to take up to 24 months for that mark to be taken off of your credit reports, for you to overcome that mark right there. That 30-day mark could take you upwards of 24 months. So are you, to make that payment late that you're going to pay, are you willing to suffer the consequences of 24 months and potentially, if they're looking at a FICO 10 score, 36 months? You don't want that. Like I've had clients where they've cleaned up their credit and they just made that one mistake and they're like, why did my score drop 50 points? And I'm like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, you can't mess up on the payment, because if you are clean on your credit and you make one mistake, the algorithm doesn't look at like, well, this is it's just one mistake. It's a little mistake. It don't look at it that way. It looks at it as a mistake. And when a mistake is made, the scores are going to drop. The next thing that you want to pay attention to is your inquiries. Be very careful about inquiries. One of the things that we see from time to time, it used to be more prevalent in the past, is when individuals would go to purchase a car, they would have like 15, 20, 30 inquiries on their credit reports. It's like I only went to one place to get, to apply. You can get all of those things removed. So look at your inquiries. Anything on there that you never applied for, you need to get it removed. And then the items that you did apply for and you feel that there was something that was not told to you the right way when you applied for it, maybe they didn't disclose certain information, then you could dispute that inquiry, because you have a right to have full understanding about what you're applying for. And there's a lot of times where people apply for things and they were never going to get approved. Maybe you went to a department store and they kept talking about the $50 off. They kept talking about $50 off, but they never went into the details about getting approved for the card. All they just said is if you're approved. Well, if you're not approved, did they disclose to you all the terms and conditions when you applied? That is something that they have to do. It is not just about, hey, the $50 off. That's what they try to have you focused on. But they have to give you the full terms and conditions. If you don't have the full terms and conditions, then you can get those inquiries removed. And then especially any inquiry where I call them spam inquiries, where you were maybe with a car dealership, or maybe like what we talked about with these companies that are out there that are, they're getting people credit cards, like they're out there applying for credit cards for people, which is that's what they do. And but if they've done it with multiple companies just to try to see which ones they can get you approved, and they try to do this credit card stacking, all of that stuff, you have a right to get that information off if they cannot prove, the number one, that you signed for that stuff, and then number two, if it's something that's where they just spammed you with a whole bunch of different inquiries. The next one that we want to talk about, which is very important, this one here is starting to kind of cool off on the public records, because what it seems like there's kind of this conversation with the courts and with what the bureaus are pulling out of those court records, that maybe this information should not be placed on credit reports. That this is, there might be another system for creditors to be able to look that information up without putting on the credit reports. Because when they put that stuff on the credit reports, this information, when stuff goes through courts, it's more than just, how do I say this? It's more than just something than an issue where you didn't pay. There's this back and forth. It was a court hearing. Did you have your rights initiated? Did you not have your rights? Was this through a third-party debt collector? Was this with the original creditor? Like, there's a whole bunch of issues that come about. But what they usually just throw on there is that you just had a judgment or you had a bankruptcy, and it's just like it just sits there. Like there's no scale. It's just like it just tears up people's credit reports right away. So it looks like what's being talked about is that they don't really want to report public records the way that they used to. I'll admit that almost when we first started with the Credit Repair Shop, it was all about public records. Like most people had public record information on their credit report. I would say that probably less than 10% of the people that we talk to now have public records information on their credit reports. And that's because the bureaus have chosen not to report all of that information, because there's always more to the story when dealing with the courts. And it just hurts people too much to have to overcome in some records a 10-year, if nothing is done, if nothing is disputed, a 10-year process of having that type of information sitting on your credit reports. That's not a good situation for consumers, and that's not a good situation for business either. If they're using algorithms to approve people, it's usually what's done in the court is said and done, and it's time to move on. It's time to, if it's a judgment, it's time to, talk about negotiations. It's not time to hold a person back from being able to move forward with their credit, with other things that they need to do. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please post your questions and comments. If you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, what makes us different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, again, go to the website 3scores.com to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports and all 3 scores, and all the information with the furnishers. Everything is going to be on there. If you grab those reports and you want to have a review done by my office, we'll tell you exactly what you need to do, and you can just take that information and utilize it yourself, or you can become a client and have us help you do it. If you have debt collectors coming after you, grab my 3-pack of letters, statute of limitations letter for debt that is past the legal statute of limitations for debt collectors or original creditors to be able to collect. You do not need to do a debt validation with that letter. You just strictly notify them that it is a time-barred debt or a debt past the statute of limitations to legally collect. They cannot sue you. They cannot make you pay it at all. They can't throw it on your credit report. They can't do none of that stuff. But they can call you and be like, hey, you had that debt. You want to pay us something for it. They can do that. The next letter that I want to give you is my cease and desist collection activities letter. This is a letter to stop debt collectors when they're first trying to come after you, or if you already have one, you can utilize this letter, because what it's going to do is going to ask certain questions that will make debt collectors have to be like, hey, are we going to, this person is not just sitting there. They are asking specific questions to make sure we have everything to prove this debt. And most of the time, they will choose not to come after you. Now, I want to be clear. This is not a cease and desist communications letter. We don't want to do that. We want to open up communication so we can get rid of that debt if they choose to discontinue coming after you. And then I also give you a debt validation letter where you can have that back and forth, just in case they're like asking more questions. This is a letter that you can utilize to go back and forth. But if you just read what they're asking, you will be able to respond to them, and it'll get that communication going back and forth. You could potentially get that debt, where they're just going to say, we're going to stop collection activities, or to move forward, they might offer to do a very good settlement. And you might just say, hey, I had the debt. That's a good settlement offer. I'll just move forward and take it. All right. Please subscribe to the channel. Please post your questions and comments. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of thecreditrepairshop.com. Thank you.